agenda is seems kind of slim, but I didn't get a lot of comments from folks when I was trying to put the agenda together. It's not on the agenda, but I guess I should ask if there was anything from the meeting notes from back in September that needed correction, if anybody noticed anything.
No.
They're pretty darn thorough.
Yeah.
There may have been one that was missed.
There's something about the Minersville boat ramp that it's like the hearing group on the Shasta Trinity, and I don't know what the hearing group is, but one of your groups is looking at something. The second line down.
Oh yeah, on page 4.
It's minor. I wouldn't worry about it. I was trying to figure out what it was.
I'm sorry, what on page 4?
So on page 4, Minersville boat ramp, the first sentence is that acreage said da 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 da, and then it says the hearing group on the Shasta Trinity National Forest is working, put together a statement of work, and Carol would
Maybe
just.
that was supposed to be steering.
Could it be
Hearing,
hearing
that's what it
group?
was. I just did not. Does that make sense, Sarah?
I think if anything, it would be engineering.
Engineering group.
Oh.
Yep,
Okay.
okay. I'll get that corrected.
It doesn't matter. I was just kind of stumped there. I was like,
Yeah, okay.
I overlooked that one. Engineering, very good.
Okay, so we usually start with kind of reports from the line officers on staffing and just how things are going. So I don't know, rock, paper, scissors, who wants to start? Sarah, maybe, and I'm assuming we're not having Sally join us today?
Yes, that's correct. She reached out to me and said she wouldn't be in attendance today. So I think
Okay.
me and Chris and Rachel.
Okay, and then Laura from BLM.
yep.
So go ahead, Sarah, if you want to start off.
Yeah, I'll keep it pretty big picture and then we can get into the specific projects. In terms of the agenda, I also got a request from Carol to talk about the Bowerman contract, so I can add that in when we go into specific project updates. Just to start, I mentioned at our last meeting that my district archaeologist was currently on detail to the Klamath National Forest, and so that's been affecting our ability to move forward on analysis. He should be returning from that detail assignment in December. So of course, that's right before the holidays, but hopefully starting in January, we're going to be able to pick back up a little bit more there. We have been able to make progress begging, borrowing, and stealing archaeologists from other districts. But that's obviously not quite the same as having your own capacity to move things forward. So we're really excited about that. And then just from another sort of big picture perspective, I think you touched on this in your white paper, Pat, which I really appreciated the thoughtfulness you put into that and the idea behind it, which is, are we actually meeting the intent here? But the focus is fire recovery, and then trying to find some way to move and incorporate more fire prevention into our work, and how do we break this cycle of just crazy fire season and then full going fire recovery until fires start again. How can we work smarter and do a better job with that? So I would say that's been a big focus of attention for the forest. Recreation stuff is starting to move along and be part of that conversation. So we have some innovative tools that are coming through the pipe, especially with our burned area rehabilitation program. So they're starting to incorporate recreation areas into their thinking of how do we get money to rebuild sites that have been burned. So we saw that in a couple of areas across our forest. But yeah, that's kind of the big picture, I think, of where the forest is at. And certainly Rachel can correct me if I'm wrong or put another spin on this, but that's kind of what I'm seeing. And then I'll defer the rest of my topics for the specific project updates. Thanks.
Okay. So this may be a time, Kelly Gant had sent an email, I think, in the last day or so.
Mhm.
And somebody from downriver also asked a question about specifically the Big Bar boat launch along the Trinity River, which I know, is not in the NRA area, but I think, Kelly, maybe you can frame your question, because I think now would be a time to kind of address that, especially while we have Rachel on the call.
Okay, so one of the hats I wear is the Trinity County Visitors and Development Bureau, and we're responsible for marketing the county to get information out, do brand recognition. So we're doing most of the marketing with about $20,000 that we have in TOT money. This is the time of year when all of the visitors guides come out, and one of the requests was, what do we need to change in our prose that we have describing Trinity County, since we were like playing up the wilderness and playing up the Trinity River corridor. And so now we're kind of like downplaying that a little bit. And what we will need to have fairly soon, and definitely by early spring, is a list of wilderness trails that are still nice. I mean, we don't want to bring tourists up and they have to walk through 3 miles of burnt sticks. What lakes they can go to, what's the status of the Forest Service campgrounds, which ones are open, which ones you're going to keep closed. All of that needs either now or by at least March. We really need to get a good handle, because we present that information to Visit California, and they have a lead time of like 4 months to get information out. So that's going to kind of be critical, because we don't want to bring anyone up here and they have a bad experience, because then they go home and tell everybody, and then they never come back to Trinity County again. It's going to be hard enough getting people up Coffee Creek Road through that big, huge burn scar. But once you get past the big burn, you can see where the burn came down to the road, and it's not quite bad, but it would be nice to know which trailheads are going to get rebuilt and which trailheads will lead to a lake that still has trees around it. So I think we just kind of need status pretty soon.
So we don't want to tell people that one of the items they need to bring on their hike, along with snacks and a second layer, is a hard hat.
True. And I've gone riding up in the Alps over the last few years before the fire, and it's gotten really dangerous to try to ride the horses up those trails, because there's huge logs just stuck in the middle, and you have to go around them, and around them is 3 foot of duff. And, the horses get like a couple feet into it, and then they start bolting because they don't like all that duff around their legs. And they're going to jump on top of you, or they're going to fall. So there's a number of those trails that I think are fairly dangerous. And I know there's a lack of money, but maybe we can use some of the burn recovery funds to kind of get into those trails. And if we're taking down hazard trees, we can actually clear the trails at the same time, hopefully.
So any thoughts?
We need money.
and crews.
Money and crews. And maybe this is a thing we go to Huffman with and see what he can do. Or there's so much need in Northern California with those fires that we've got to get some focus on it. I know we're going to be a little piece, because priority, of course, is going to go for the Calder fire and maybe the Dixie fire, but I think we need to be a voice in there and try to get some of it. Kind of use Pat's grant dust philosophy.
So, I have a question that I brought up at the last meeting was like, so something like Goldfield campgrounds, it's kind of toast. And so if the Bear team recommends, essentially rehabbing it, is that something then that you is a lower priority just because people are unlikely to camp there because it is not an attractive place? Is there a way for you to shift money around? In other words, if you get recovery money, does it have to be spent on stuff that, could wait a little while till the forest starts to come back and people, might want to camp there again? I mean, that's a kind of a spin-off of Kelly's question. I mean, things like the Boulder Lake Trail, I haven't been able to go up there. I don't know what it looks like, but one of the things, that one we've always talked about adding a bathroom, because that one is super popular. It doesn't have a bathroom up there. If it's still a doable trail, is that part of maybe a rehab kind of vision for making that trail more attractive? I mean, it looks like it burned on one side and didn't burn on like the other side, a little boulder, I don't know. So anyway, just thoughts on how you're gonna, like Kelly says, prioritize and attract people to the stuff that's still worth visiting in the short term.
Yeah, these are good thoughts. We do have, Carol, some flexibility. So we have these pots of money post-fire that each are sort of designated for different themed activities. So the bare money that we get, it has to be spent in particular types of, doing particular types of rehabilitation work on the land. And typically how we do have some flexibility in our prioritization of those rehabilitation projects, but typically we will prioritize those that are the most dangerous to the public and try to get after those immediately, and then leave some of those other pieces for when we've got more folks out there to be able to get some of those tasks done. But we also have the ability to still do some suppression, fire suppression repair, which is a whole different kind of bucket of money that allows us to get after other types of issues that were caused actually by the suppression activities themselves. Then we have post-fire restoration activities that come much more directly out of our appropriated funds. And then I should not fail to mention our post-storm restoration activities, our post-storm kind of rehabilitation for, the natural disaster after the natural disaster kind of pieces. And that too, where, there is not so much of a basket of money like we have for BEAR, where we actually do go ahead and request a chunk from the national office to get after these emergency projects. But for, pieces that would be post-storm and pieces that would be post-fire, and trying to kind of prep the landscape for, the coming year, are going to be much more, we're going to have to look at what Congress gives us in our usual budgetary world and see what we can pull from that for those pieces. So lots of different, kind of baskets of money that we need to look at and spend carefully, doing the activities that match the money. And then the other piece of it for us right now in this moment is ensuring that we have people to actually do the work, knowledgeable people that are available. And so a lot of our folks have been on these fires all season, have a ton of leave that they're going to lose if they don't use it. Also are just exhausted. So we need to, what we're looking at now internally, kind of some of our internal conversations amongst the line officers, is how can we expand our capacity here? How can we be a force multiplier, not have to rely on the few employees that we actually have who have been doing this all summer, either during the fires as reeds and reefs or after the fires on fair, and see, where else we can go to bring on detailers or do some contracting or partnerships or pieces like that. So that kind of overlays the whole thing. But to your question, Kelly, the list of sort of what pieces are going to stay closed and what trails are going to be open, and then what trails we think might be good ones. I'm certain we can get that for you. Our rangers can work on that and get that for you. That shouldn't be a heavy lift at all, so that we can get the marketing piece back to the state
Yeah.
in a timely fashion. For
Thank
sure.
you.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, trails like, so Boulder Lake is probably going to be not a favorite, but there are other ones like Long Canyon and Stewart's Fork. Kelly and I are thinking, well, I'm thinking from the North Trinity Lake Visitor Center, where we usually direct people. And so some of the places we usually direct people, we're going to not tell them to go. But something like Long Canyon, Swift Creek, Stewart's Fork, the ones that weren't affected by the fire, if those were higher priorities for trail maintenance, let's say, so that they were safer trails for people to go up, that might be the kind of thing, if you could, look at how you prioritize even maintaining the trails, that would help.
And I think we need to remind ourselves, I know Kelly and Carol and I tend to think about the impacts from the river complex. But, the Monument Fire had some pretty significant impacts on recreation.
Yes.
Which brings me back to the question from somebody downriver about, it seems like there's a lot of rehab work needed at the Big Bar river put in, launch area. And then thinking of further south, the South Fork National Recreation Trail, things like that. This goes back to certainly the August complex, not just this year's fires, that we need to be thinking about more globally. And so that, it slops over outside of Shasta Trinity into Six Rivers also. So we need to reach out to Six Rivers recreation folks a little bit better. So they get emails, about these meetings, but they've never really been major participants. And frankly, I have no reliable contacts at the Lower Trinity Ranger Station in Six Rivers anymore. They've kind of gone silent a few years ago. On funding, I guess something that I would say, clearly isn't, going to happen for 2022 field season, but the infrastructure bill that Congress passed that the president's supposed to sign on Monday also includes 3 years of authorization for secure rural schools. And so the RAC is actively working through its proposals for the 2018 through 2020 money right now, but we'll have a call for proposals, I'm assuming, right after the new year, to begin to think about how to spend at least the next year's allocation. So thinking about RAC proposals, whether that's contract crews, CCCs, Watershed Center, RCD, whoever, volunteers, backcountry horsemen. It would be an opportunity to maybe have some subgroup get together and come together with kind of a cohesive strategy for RAC funding. Because it's a pretty good chunk of change, and there are always advocates for trails, represented on the RAC, right, Ross? So anyway, that's kind of a, out there, a little ways out there, but we don't want to lose track of that.
We didn't get any proposals this year from either Shasta Trinity. Normally we get TRMU and NRA proposals directly from those agencies, and we didn't get those. And I understand totally why, you guys were so swamped. But in the future, I think the RAC committee usually looks for proposals specifically from the Forest Service. So they would welcome that.
I want to also add that the last time I drove up Coffee Creek Road, if you get up to Big Flat, it was in amazingly pretty good condition. Everything from Lancaster's Mountain Meadow Resort and Big Flat are in good. The road, on the other hand, is a disaster. And that is a hugely popular road, and people are going to go up there because it actually survived. Years ago, I don't know what the status of it is, but the Federal Highway Administration had a program for access to the wilderness, and they granted Trinity County money in 2 phases. Coffee Creek 1 was the second priority. First priority was Canyon Creek. So I'm wondering if now we could go back to them and say, look, we had this fire go through, we have all this restoration, the road is twice as bad as it was when you looked at it, and you thought it was bad then. If maybe we can get the Federal Highway Administration to move some of those funds around and at least give us some of that money now to do road restoration, to make that road safe and to stabilize it before tourists start coming up in the spring.
Or are there any bear funds or restoration program or, post-fire restoration funds for repair of the road?
As I understand it, you guys, and we get more detail into this, we'll have to grab the specialists, but Coffee Creek Road is a county road, not a forest system road.
I believe that that's correct all the way to Big Flat, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, yeah, the county maintenance ends just before the Big Flat campground, which did not burn and is a nice place to camp.
But doesn't the Forest Service have to, the impact of the fire, don't they have some responsibility then to help with shoring up roads and getting rid of hazardous trees and all that kind of stuff along the road?
What we have the bear funding to do, Kelly, is to do rehabilitation activities on our lands, not on the road.
But you
So-
could take down all the hazard trees on your property.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah,
Okay.
hazard tree is usually part of our suppression repair. Hazard tree removal along roads is part of our suppression repair plan, post-fire as well.
Okay.
Yep.
So,
So it's kind of a combo.
so Rachel, so even where like on lower Coffee Creek Road, there was the debris flow from the Forest Service land onto the road itself, then the Forest Service isn't responsible for helping to kind of remediate that. That's just the county's responsibility.
The county has responsibility to maintain its roads, regardless of the, I shouldn't say regardless of, I should say in the face of natural disasters
Okay.
that occur. So yeah, it is the county's responsibility to maintain that road.
And yeah, I think
All right,
we
you
should-
guys, I'm so sorry, but, oh, Carol, go ahead.
I do believe that the county is working with FEMA because it's been declared a disaster area on getting reimbursed for some of the county costs for fixing the road. So
Perfect.
maybe that would
Okay.
help.
Yes, that's exactly where that money should come from, is FEMA. That's great. I'm glad to hear that.
Cool.
Okay, so Rachel, I know
Thank
you've
you,
got to
Rachel.
probably get going.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for the time. Hopefully we'll see you next Friday for the full collaborative.
I thank you guys for letting me jump on. I really appreciate it. I'll have to check my calendar and see if the full collaborative, if I can pop on there as well. Sorry that I can't stay for the whole meeting.
Okay.
Would like to listen to the whole rest of the conversation, but appreciate you letting me join you for a moment.
Okay.
Thank you.
Have a good weekend.
Thank you.
Bye,
Rachel.
you guys.
So kind of back on the line officer. So Chris, did you have anything in particular in that topic to share with us?
Hi. I got a lot to share. I got a lot that we can talk about. Let me just give you some. Let me just give you the overview, and you can ask more. But we finally started on this Monday cutting trees out of the 3 campgrounds in Forest Glen. I believe we started at Hellgate. We are the loggers started cutting on Monday. I've got pictures, and so that is supposed to happen relatively quickly. The Scott Flat timber sale We'll remove hazardous trees from the Forest Glen campground, the Hellgate campground, the Scott Flat campground, and then the mill. There was some optional timber subject to agreement that included an area along Summer Home Road where the rec residences were, and two still are. And the mill has agreed to take on that as well. So we're looking at that. It looks like we'll be able to get some of those trees that are along the power line down in that area. I just spoke to Rachel about that, and she's supportive of the general idea. So that's good. And then also with that, we have we've got the funding, and we have the final approval to do the outhouse replacements in Scott Flat and Hellgate. We actually had to have some archaeologists out there sifting through all of the soil in the Hellgate campground, because that is a prehistoric site, the Hellgate campground. Now, on that, as a little segue, we are losing our archaeology department. We're losing both of our full-time archaeologists next month. We're putting together some detail assignments. Hopefully we can fill them. But we are losing our archaeologists. We are still trying to fill a hydrology position and a fuels position. And it looks like we just got approved. Looks like we just filled our office manager position, which I know isn't directly as exciting, but those positions really help us do more, right? And we're now at the point where we're down so low that in my mind, we're down so low that like it's hard to fill them, because I need to spend time filling positions, and that then takes away from my ability to do my job. I actually tried to find an old organization chart from 10 years ago to see how much our organization has shrunk in the last 10 years. And there was no one to help me find it. So that's kind of an indicator. So we really do. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so the archaeologist position, so this is I'm assuming is kind of west side, both SFMU and TRMU.
Exactly.
Losing two are, and these were permanent positions that are,
Yes.
They're taking jobs somewhere else.
Yeah, one definitely. The other one is just moving out of the area and doesn't want to. There's no Forest Service in that area, so yeah.
Okay.
But
But when you say you're losing the archaeology department, the
no, not
position-
permanently.
Right.
I probably shouldn't have been. So
Yeah, you're gonna rehire at some point.
Oh, yeah. We have
refill.
approval.
Okay,
We're definitely going to
great.
rehire, but just the gap. So we want to. We definitely want to fill the positions. I'm sensing maybe they're loosening up with the rehiring, because we were kind of on a hiring freeze for a long time. I'm sensing that may be happening, but we need to put the time and effort into filling those positions so we can do work in the future. So we're trying to fill those positions, looking to fill positions that haven't been filled for a while. I am, at least. I really want to do that, but that's going to take some time. Okay. Well, so, and kind of seeing into this, we're definitely eager to do partnerships. We've got a potential partnership with the Smart Center, which has an office right next to the diner. What is it called? Is the diner the Diggins? Nugget. Yeah, I get that mixed up with the Nick. So that Smart Center is right next to there. So they've got money, and they want to come in and help us clean up the 3 campgrounds in Forest Glen. The issue is we need to have somebody supervising them the whole time. And so, when there's a cost. All this money comes with a slight cost to us. We might get 10 people for free, but we still have to provide one person of our own. We might get 3 people for free, but we have to provide one person of our own, or 2 people, because one needs to manage the agreement and one needs to be out there. So we are, so we need to focus on that, and certainly any help that you can offer when it comes to helping us just fill our org chart back to what it was 5 years ago would be really helpful. Let's see. Want to let you know about some closures. I actually can't speak to the monument fire because we've kind of agreed Tara's going to mostly take that on. I've been thinking a lot about the McFarland fire. So the good news is that we lifted all of the area restrictions on the monument. So basically there are no area-based restrictions south of Highway 36 right now. Of course, everything south of Highway 36 is pretty much burned in the last 2 years. Some at a low severity, but some at a high severity. So what we did was we decided, all right, we're not going to just exclude people from driving around hunting, stuff like that. But we have closed, we've had to close a bunch of campgrounds, a bunch of trailheads. A lot of these non-developed camping areas are like Rat Trap and things like that are closed. Because we didn't want to close the whole area, but we do need to keep people away from burnt infrastructure. Somebody mentioned the South Fork National Recreation Trail. Sally determined that there was parts of this that were in danger of collapsing, and so we've closed that trail. The trails in the wilderness are open, but some of the trails in the Yola Bolis are open, but some of the trailheads are closed just because of safety issues. Now, the regional office has decided to jump into the world of hazard trees. And I don't know if you guys have heard this, but their plan is to put together a EA because there's been a lot of pushback now, and we've been losing in court with the idea that we can cut hazard trees as part of road maintenance, so that we've lost in court now a couple of times on this, the idea, which kind of baffles my mind sometimes, because if we're cutting a tree that's going to hit the road, you'd think that'd be maintenance, but the courts have weighed in and said that's not maintenance. So the regional office is putting together an EA to try to deal with all of the hazard trees along roads and campgrounds and trailheads and stuff like that across the region. I'm hopeful that it'll be successful. I do think though that there's going to be some, again, work on our side. Just because somebody gives you 80% of what you need, now it means you got to spend 20, got to give yourself 20% of what you need. So that's another thing. But if that works out according to plan, then that could be a huge help in getting our ability to clear trees around campgrounds, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, I think I've seen there was a notice of intent or something that was out maybe in the beginning of November, end of October about that.
So that would be really helpful. That should be really helpful. And then the last thing is, we're talking about roads. I had a couple of meetings with, we were actually primarily talking about the roads around the Post Mountain area, but I've had a couple of meetings with community members, and Rick Tippett was in one of these meetings, and I don't know, I think Kelly, you were in one of them, or you sent one of your staff. We've had a lot of changeover. Rick is gone. Not sure what Astrid's involvement is anymore. I don't know if she's kind of taking more of a back seat on the fire VFT. But I wanted to suggest what Rick has said. But what our engineer has been saying is, a lot of these roads that we're maintaining, we're not really necessarily maintaining for forest visitors. We're maintaining for inholdings and such. And so I don't know what appetite there is. Rick didn't have any appetite, but now that he's gone, I don't know what appetite there is for the county taking on some additional roads. I know it probably freaks you guys out, but I think we should probably have some strategic conversations about whether some roads could be better managed by the county. I know that we're not against that idea for certain roads when the roads are not really primarily being used for for forest recreation and forest access. You know, I think of the Wild Mad Road, where I don't know if you folks know that we had a washout on the Wild Mad Road and had to really put together we really put together a quick response. But we've now got we've got a kind of a low water crossing. It's not covered in water most of the year, but it'll be underwater during storms. We put that together. That's functional. That's working. But in 2 months, I think we have 2 years to pull it out and replace it with something permanent. So, our infrastructure, I think we all care about our infrastructure. And so trying to figure out where the best, who can do the best work is something on my mind. So I probably went way over my allotted time, but if there's any questions, happy to engage.
We'll take it out of your time next time.
Okay.
I have a question. For all of these campgrounds and trails that you're closing, are you going to keep the website, the Forest website up to date so we can point people to those?
Yeah, it's up to date, and we've actually been able to. I have to check. I have to talk to our. We've had some PAO, a lot of PAO changeovers, but we actually have somebody making forest-wide maps, so to put all the closures on the maps.
Oh, wonderful.
We've got so many maps that we got so many different closures. So one of my staff has been putting those maps together. I'm going to check to see if it's posted. It was posted and then it came down. And the key is have people go to forest orders. That's where the official thing is. And then if there's anything we can do.
Yeah, that doesn't work.
It doesn't work because one, the tourists aren't going to take that much time to read them. And I have to admit that I don't understand them. I mean, I read them and I have no idea really where that area is because they're written in as if you know the area.
Yeah.
And I think the maps are the biggest thing.
Well, the maps are on the same page as the orders.
Okay.
Yeah, but I mean, if you don't go to that maps and orders page, if you just go to the recreation and the trails where it describes the trails, is that being updated?
I don't know that exact answer right now. No.
Yeah, I can almost guarantee you that people aren't going through the orders at all.
Right.
Okay. So any other questions for Chris?
We have a new public affairs officer, and we're going to probably get a new permanent one. So we should.
Yay.
Maybe she would be a good person to have.
At a meeting, yeah.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
Better what the public, I have an idea, but better how the public's going to interface with our website. And I think if we can get that on their radar early on, then we can probably avoid a lot of questions and a lot of, because public affairs handles the front desks. And if our website is good, then it relieves some of the pressure on our front desks. So
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, so definitely want to work. Definitely that's a good idea.
Great idea.
Okay. Cool. Okay, so Laura, you had just some kind of staffing related updates, or you want to launch into your business plan update?
Yeah, I guess in general, the update is probably the same as our last meeting, which is, we're kind of in the thick of our resource management plan. The comment period, so the NOI should be out, who knows, soon in the next few months, maybe in December, January. And that will initiate the kind of formal scoping period for the plan. So I'm sure that notice will be sent out to y'all too. So when that comes out, just know that's what that is. Kind of in the same place we were at our last meeting, I think.
Okay.
And I'm trying to think any other staffing updates. We're doing pretty good on that front at this point. So yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, and then the business plan, if you want to just.
Yeah, why don't we launch into that?
Cool. So I think I mentioned this maybe in the last meeting, but and similar, the Forest Service presented about their business plan updates last meeting. And this is essentially the same thing that the BLM is doing. Oh, one thing I just want to mention, and I will try to remember to get this info to you, Kelly, but we are talking about changing, like opening our campgrounds earlier. So I don't know if that is the sort of information you would want for like the Visit Trinity County stuff, but we'll try to get you that info for next season. We're going to try to open about a month earlier. Okay, back to the business plan. So yeah, we're updating our business plan, which is how we increase fees or implement new fees. So we have a presentation and Jessica is here. She's our outdoor recreation planner who's been heading up the business plan. So I can share my screen, Jessica, or if you share yours. Oh no, you're muted.
Go ahead.
To like unmute on the phone and then unmute on the screen too.
Yeah. Hear me now? Okay.
Yes.
Yep.
Yep. So yeah, my little phone situation. So hi, yeah, it's exciting. Yeah, it'd be great if you'd share your screen, Laura, if you have it.
Mhm. And sorry, we didn't have time to take out the Shasta County stuff. So you'll see the Shasta County stuff in there too. Kind of skip over that.
So I guess on the first, with all the pictures, it kind of came up, it was helpful in the last one to note that our fee changes and everything will influence all of the recreation in the area, because this fee revenue will go back into places like Grapevine, Lorenz, and some of the other Trinity County areas that aren't specifically campgrounds or with fee sites, but this will overall enrich, you know, our ability to do things in Trinity County once things are up and running and we have a good sustainable business plan in place. So yeah, we're focused, of course, on the Junction City, Steiner Flat, Douglas City, and Steelbridge campgrounds in this plan. And that will, those 4 campgrounds, you know, Junction City will have some improvements, but I think the biggest thing going for that and the changes here is that we are looking at rec.gov in the future, and Junction City is such a prominent pass-through area. It's such a good stopover that we think the, you know, changing the fees and getting some of these sites on recreation.gov will really serve travelers and tourists and everything. Headed this way towards Steiner Flat Campground, I think folks were aware that that was, you know, it was good intention to have a free camping area, but in this kind of modern times, it was not sustainable just environmentally. And we're going to put in just some base, you know, the concept with Steiner Flat and the plan is to really give it a basic amenity infrastructure so that we're managing things like trash and food storage for, you know, bears around. And so really basic. We're not trying to develop these campgrounds through a business plan into something much different than they are, just to really bring them into much more sustainable use. You go to Douglas City, kind of the biggest thing you'll see there is it really being kind of our most developed campground with running water and things. And so it will actually still be, we're still trying to keep it super affordable for local community. So really just topping out at 20 there, but that will be our kind of premierish, nicest, most developed campground. The other campground included in this business plan is Steelbridge, and again, the aim to just help bring this into sustainable use. It currently has a $5 fee, and we'd just be going up to 15, but we'll jump into the actual rate a little further on. But, I believe this is similar to all the Forest Service, you know, all of our federal agencies. We were operating through, you know, enhancement acts specific to recreation and fees and how we charge the public differently than the stuff that we just inherently build, provide, and manage for everyone. So we rely on this Federal Lands Recreation Enhancement Act to help guide us to understanding, what is and isn't okay to charge additional fees for. And there's some pretty specific criteria. So you'll see in our expanded amenity fees down here, there's a pretty good definition of what counts. And so we went through our campgrounds and made sure everything counts, and that these are things that, the American public, not everyone in the American public uses them. This is to really serve the recreating public, and that recreating public has kind of a, we look to them for some amount of financial contribution to what they use and keeping it sustainable. So it's the intent and purpose is really towards this sort of suitable use for the general public and the recreating public, so that people are paying for what they use when it's a little above and beyond, but to still provide that at cost, at a really sustainable, reasonable cost for us and without overhead. Another type of fee that comes up in our guidance is the standard amenity fee, and this comes up just a little bit for Douglas City Campground and Steel Bridge Campground, because these campgrounds have historical day use occurring within them. And so we have people not actually using these campgrounds for the overnight purposes and with all of the other types of maintenance and facility needs for that, but they are using these defined aspects such as the permanent toilet, the trash. They also were seeking the interpretation, picnic areas and things like that, and kind of would highlight the security services, so just that sense of security. So we are looking at managing some conflict in use in our campgrounds through this fee, and that conflict just arising out of some people paying, some people not, there being some kind of hard feelings about that. And then also about when you have an area completely open, you can sometimes have too many people join into the campground, and then it becomes kind of unsustainable and overcrowded. So this is also helping us kind of rein in and mitigate some user conflicts, helping us establish capacity based on this limited resources, limited geographic area, and then also have that financial contribution to the services that campers are using as well. So we got some day use, just a little bit of day use in this plan, but mostly we'll just be hitting these campground fees for the 4 campgrounds.
So the expanded amenity fees are generally campground fees for us, and then the standard amenity fees, you'll hear us refer to as day use fees. So those are the terms from Florida. If you read the actual plan, we'll reference them, but in reality, we call them campground fees and day use fees.
Yeah.
Talking.
So on this screen, you'll see some of our other areas being listed, but again, we'll just be focused on Trinity. So I guess we'll start on the bottom left. This is the day use kind of amenity stuff I was speaking of. So you'll see the day use for Douglas and Steel Bridge. This does include one night of overnight parking, because we have encountered that people want to do floats on the river. They feel more comfortable leaving their vehicles in these places. So we want to serve that. They're using the bathrooms, the trash and all of that for a day use purpose, but we also want to extend the ability for a vehicle to be there while they're out shuttling, for shuttling and everything. And just to make sure, I don't know if I mentioned this, I don't think it did, but Douglas City Campground, for those not familiar, is right on the river as well as Steel Bridge. So these offer ramp options, so people will be using that also to launch and take off. So that's included in these day use amenity type fees. Douglas City Campground does have a shower facility that we put in a few years ago, and we've noticed this demand in the area for showers, and just in order to serve folks can buy. For those, we'd like to open this up for a small fee. This is something that's seen work well in state parks, and I do believe we have pretty concentrated recreation right around Douglas City Campgrounds. So I believe we really will be serving a lot of recreators, and it'll be an interesting thing to kind of wrangle with everything, but well worth it, I believe. So in the center here, we're moving into just a straight up campground fee. The Steiner Flat Campground, this is the one I was speaking of that we tried to offer for, just free open use. We're transitioning that to a new fee. The $15 fee, which seems to resonate out across, I saw in the Forest Service business plan also, it seems like in order to provide trash services, high quality maintenance, sense of security, staff time, cleaning back up through here, ensuring sanitation, all of that. We've determined that a $15 fee is kind of the lowest fee and the sustainable fee that we could put in place. And when we are looking at this, Steiner Flat Campground is proposed to be pretty heavily remodeled, offer more sites, and have all those services in there. So installation of bear boxes, fire rings, picnic tables, ensuring we have a nice tent surface, parking spurs that are well defined, and I think on that note, we were talking about a lot of Visit California information. We will go through these for the parking spur link to help us have that information out there for people so they know, hey, I can fit in this campground or not. I don't think we have that info out there too much right now. So I think that'll be helpful. Steiner Flat is also one considered for having some sites included on recreation.gov, and we think this will help ensure its sustainability. We do see rec.gov as a tool for really almost advertising, so people know we're there and we have these great riverside campgrounds, and then also enabling people to feel comfortable leaving the highways so they have a place to stay. And then on another side, this really helps us ensure that we will have that cost recovery and it be sustainable, because this is an insured payment method. On the far right, we'll just hit on Douglas City, Junction, and Steelbridge. These fees have not been increased in over a decade, and there's a modest change from Junction from 10 to 15, but that $5 cumulatively will really go a long way. That adds up for us. And then Steelbridge, of course, it's at 5, and that really isn't sustainable for us, trying to ensure all the maintenance, security, and upgrade, fix, broken tables, fire rings that are popped out, things like that. It's all of this is going through very, very basic camping experiences, and we'd like to maintain those. It's kind of that interesting, I don't know the best word for it, but we're trying to develop and make things a lot nicer, while also not, we're not trying to go to this other end of the spectrum of like the state parks and amenities with electricity and, having any other high dollar type of amenities offered. We're just really trying to bring these up to a different kind of level, but still have that nature experience be the primary focus. The two types of analysis we perform to get to these rates is really fair market. That's just looking around, making sure we're operating within local conditions, and that across the board, in doing this, I tried to tailor to, ensure that, but then also look at the spectrum of difference in the lowest prices and the highest, and seeing how we fit down there really at kind of this lowest rate, especially with what we offer, and that's sustainable and common. So we were operating that very broadly generally. And then in cost recovery, that was looking more internally. I was looking at the cost to us as a BLM providing these services out of Reading and with our hosts there in Trinity. And this is how we kind of dialed in, like, can we do this at 15? Can we, what would be possible? And in terms of looking at the local area, you'll see a breakdown in our business plan showing, census data about income and traveling, and try this specifically to the areas around where we are. We looked at some Forest Service data, but again, had to pare that down to where we are. We do have 100 commercial fishing guide operators, so we have a fair bit of commercial uses that we permit, and in making our campgrounds better in this area, we hope to be serving that, which is that's a pretty good industry. So if this becomes more appealing places to stay and our ramps and areas, also considered and why we would move to do this little rate change. So, I've mentioned we need to do this to get sustainable, but this is kind of where we're at. We're currently only recovering about 9% of our operating costs. And so it's a big jump to think of going from 9 to 100. So we're really setting some goals out for ourselves of 50 to 75% recovery in the next, immediate time frame. I don't expect our campgrounds to fill and us get to 100%. That really kind of is our direction to be sustainable through BLM. We need fees to pay for campgrounds because, like I mentioned before, not everybody uses them, so we want to make sure we're being fair to the people that don't use them more generally. So, we're looking at, we'll probably get 50 to 75% of our operating costs with these rates, to start off. And as we get better, we think this will increase to be more sustainable. So we want to give this a shot. This number also accounts for like all the fluctuations we have, like with fire, or can have fire, weather events, things like this that, we can't inflate prices to try to get that back. So we're setting them to look at, okay, so if we have all these major fluctuations, we have general visitation that's impacted, we can keep that 50% with these rates, we believe, price this out completely. So anyway, it's just an interesting way to try to incrementally get to what we need without, actually overshooting the mark. Because if we have these places on rec.gov, things become popular and we're over 50% full, we don't want to end up realizing, that we set our prices a bit too high. So we'll be working our way toward a sustainable amount. This kind of goes over, the things. This is the kind of more detailed look at the costs and what we looked at in our increases. So Douglas City's at 10 currently. We're proposing to go to 20, and that 20 is looking at, the things that we saw in our guidance. What are we going to do there? What do we have? And we do need, so it's hitting on waste removal, vegetation management, maintaining all of the infrastructure and improving things. So Douglas 10 to 20, Junction again would be 10 to 15. Steelbridge would go from 5 a night to 15. And these are the things we intend to provide with those fee monies. And I think the health and safety point is a big one in doing this. It's a little harder to define than like a kiosk, but the ability of law enforcement, fire and fuels, recreation staff, having hosts, having this ability to really keep this well staffed and time set to this is a big goal.
Some dog shenanigans going on behind me. So
No worries. So this is Steiner Flat Campground again. I touched on this a couple times, but this just kind of is highlighting this was a no fee area, and it is proposed at 15. All the same reasons that we've gone over, just this basic standard services and making this a sustainable area. You can see some pictures on the right here. This is kind of where we ended up. People, really veering from kind of recreational use and more to situations that, we don't mind, people who are, fitting in a different category and the more transient situation, seasonal workers, that like to use it, that, we actually do not have big limitations around these new fees, because we consider if people are recreating responsibly and are paying the minimum fee so that we can haul off their trash and do things like this, that, that's our intent and purpose. That is just to make this more sustainable, and we believe it really is quite affordable for seasonal workers and people like that. We're trying to keep our rates within reach of everyone.
dog shenanigans, just
No worries. So I was curious in specifics if anybody had questions about Steiner Flat Campground, going to fee, any kind of concerns or thoughts. I really appreciate hearing them.
Kelly has a question. Go
Not a
ahead.
question, but a statement. I think we get about a dozen calls or inquiries each year from families in Reading looking for the closest campground to take their families to. So keeping these campgrounds up and having them in a condition where these families can come up for one night, I think is great. The dads are just looking to get the kids out to do a camping experience, and they just need one night. And they don't want to drive forever. So this is great. Thank you.
Oh, awesome.
I think we kind of talked through these ones already, the day use fees. If anyone has any questions about kind of why we're suggesting day use fees in these areas, or kind of what that would look like.
So I'm just kind of curious at Steel Bridge. So the day use area you're talking about is the flat just to downriver from the actual campground where people put in and take out?
It's actually, so I need to disambiguate this as well in the plan, because this is a Steel Bridge and Steel Bridge day use area. We actually have a place at the end of the campground. It's actually, once you drive through the campground and you're actually going upriver, at the back of it, this bottom right picture is actually a picture of this turnaround, large kind of turnaround area. And we have about an average of 5 vehicles parking through here and using, and I think Laura was just motioning to this middle top picture. That's actually a little beachish ramp, primitive ramp area that's actually upriver of the campground also. And so we have this very local use of this area, but it's again a capacity and a ability use issue for just having some payment in and working well with the people that are paying campground fees in there. Because this day use area is just like a little local gym, and it's nested in the campground, and we're just trying to make sure we can keep that access open and well regulated.
So the
big gravel
existing, oh, go ahead. You were just gonna say it.
The existing like downriver, that big gravel bar area, that's still wide open. That's a free area. I know that's heavily used by all of our guides, our commercial guides, and a lot of fishermen. And that area, we will still be just free. That's just an access
Okay.
point.
Just kind of curious because it seemed, okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one, I feel like our names in here sometimes get a little redundant. We have that going on, and it's actually something we hope to address a little bit to help clarify things. So appreciate it.
I think we've kind of talked through some of this stuff too. This slide just kind of goes through and shows you how we're using fee dollars. You know, hazard trees or collecting garbage, regulate. We improved, you know, the Grapevine parking area recently. Yeah, there's lots of different stuff, and a big, Jessica kind of hit on it, a big cost for us is actually like security services, which is, you know, having park rangers out there, having our law enforcement out there. You know, we get, I think this tree was actually illegal wood cutting. So just trying to deal with that sort of stuff is one of our major costs.
Yeah, and I would note too, this concept of what will you use the fee dollars for is part of our direction. So in the business plan, when we're going over this, we are directed to put these fee dollars that come in to our specific sites back into these sites in the surrounding areas. So
Is this picture in the lower right-hand corner, is that the readings bar one that you're talking about?
that's actually Grapevine.
Grapevine, so that's on the North Fork?
That is,
Okay.
yep.
Where they call,
the-
near where they call the rope swing locally?
Yeah, and
Where's
they're down
Readings
there.
Bar?
that's actually more in Tehama County. That's kind of on the northern.
There's a reading bar up in Trinity too.
There
That
is
sign
multiple
you said it
readings.
had like Trinitarianist, like ECV, like dedication to it. So I didn't know where that
This
was.
one.
Yeah, that one.
This is
Oh.
in Douglas City Campground, I think.
Oh, it's in Douglas City Campground.
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah, that's an interesting, I threw that in there because I love that sign. It's an old interpretive panel for, that's tucked back there out of sight of the campground, and we'd actually want to build on that. But that, yeah, sorry about that. We have too many reading and readings.
Well, as
That
somebody
reading-
as
That
somebody
writing
that
guy was all
actually-
over.
As somebody that actually camps, I thought that your rates are, I mean, you know, relative to what we see normally around the lake or on Forest Service campgrounds are, you know, they're reasonable. So, I mean, even, you know, the new ones are pretty good. So just anecdotally, I think that's not going to shock too many people, I don't think. What was that, Carol?
That as someone who also camps a lot, I thought you guys should charge more. This is really cheap compared to all the places we've camped lately.
Yeah, and I would say, you know, we want to go with this and see how recreation.gov works with it and how people like it. You know, if this is how things are gonna work in this area with that, because I feel like with the addition of recreation.gov, this can be a sustainable fee level. With our increase in host presence and things like that, it is possible that we'd be coming back in a couple of years soon, tweaking things, but for the most part, I do feel like we can start here and have a good shot at being able to stay here for a little bit. But we are looking at incremental, and hopefully this will do the trick. But I'm gonna go ahead and throw that out there, that we are kind of in a process trying to get sustainable. I mean, going from 9% to 100 is fit, and we really want it to fit with the demand and needs of people around the 4 campgrounds at Trinity.
Yeah, so this last slide here is just about the business plan process and kind of let you know where we are in it. You know, we prepared the initial draft. Our state office and headquarters reviewed it. We had this slide is actually out of date, had a public comment period that was open for 30 days. That's actually closed now, but if anyone wants to provide comments, we would still accept them at this point. But yeah, so, you know, we shared it with local officials, lots of user groups, partners to share. We posted at, you know, all our kiosks and at some of the local businesses and stuff too. We did get probably like 4 or 5 comments. Nothing super substantial. A few people who were upset that we were raising prices to begin with. And a few that like weren't really relevant. We have presented to our Resource Advisory Council. And we actually have to get our Resource Advisory Council to formally approve the business plan. Unfortunately, we don't have a quorum in our RAC right now. We need some more people on the RAC to have a quorum. So we're kind of waiting on next meeting, they'll be able to present it or approve it. But we did present to them and no one really had many comments from that. For new fees, we have to actually post in the Federal Register also. And it has to be in the Federal Register for 6 months. Currently, right now, there's our headquarters director has said that we're not gonna implement new fees, so we can't actually post to the Federal Register right now. So we're kind of in this holding pattern, which is why if folks have comments, like we can still change things around at this point. Yeah, but once hopefully they'll lift that kind of moratorium on posting to the Federal Register for new fees, and we'll be able to post that and it'll be up for 6 months. So now we're looking at maybe not next season, but the season after we'd have all these new fees in place. Yeah, and at that point, the state director signs it and we implement it. So yeah, that's kind of where we are and a summary of some of the public comments we've gotten so far. But if anyone wants to look at it in more detail or whatever has other comments, we're happy to take them now too.
I have a quick question. If someone wants to just drive up from Reading for the night, can they pay on site or how would they do the paying?
So right now it's, we just have fee tubes and little fee envelopes.
Okay.
And right now everything is first come, first serve. Like Jessica was mentioning, we are looking at using recreation.gov in some of our campgrounds and maybe having it like half reservations, half first come, first serve. We just think with reservations, we'll actually get more use and sometimes a different kind of use, which could be nice. Yeah.
So one of the things to think about for the reservations that we've gotten complaints about in some places is people reserve. And since it's only $15, they don't cancel. They just lose the $15, but the place is reserved. And then so people come in and they can't take the site. There's nobody there, but it's reserved. And I don't know how to get around that. And except tell people, because you're not going around checking to see if they showed up, so you can't double their fees. So I don't know. It's too bad people do that.
Yeah, and it's tough too because you want to know if you reserved it and you get delayed on the road and you still want a place to stay. So it's kind of like double edged for sure. Yeah.
Maybe, I guess you can't say like, if you don't show up by 10 o'clock, we give it away.
Yeah.
If people pay and they have paid, then that's the kind of position we get in is we can't take it back.
And unfortunately, the standard is we basically don't.
Yeah.
Someone
well,
has
great work on this plan. I think you guys are doing great stuff. I'm happy to see the campgrounds being worked on.
Yeah, anybody else? Any other questions, comments for Laura or Jessica? No? Great. Go ahead, Susan.
I just wanted to ask, what is the time frame that you're planning on being open next year? You said you could open a month
I always
earlier.
get this wrong. So we open, right now we open on Labor Day. Is Labor Day the one at the beginning or the end of the summer?
At the end of the summer.
We open on Memorial Day. Currently, we're looking to open a month earlier. So we'd open up at the beginning of May.
Okay.
Yeah, we just, with climate change, like it's nice at that time of year up there. So capitalize. We're testing out staying open later too. So currently we just closed Douglas City because it has like flush toilets and we need to shut the water off, but we're keeping Steel Bridge and Junction City open and kind of seeing what kind of use we get later, through November. So.
Okay.
Cool.
Thank you.
Great. Well, thank you very much. So next thing on the agenda was an update on the National Recreation Area Lake Concessionaire RFP. We have Sarah.
Hey there. Yeah, so that, not a lot has changed on that since our last meeting. That is still, that is, I think, currently being reviewed by our regional office to make sure it meets all of the regional clause requirements. And the field visit for that, I believe I mentioned at our last meeting, has been moved. It was going to be in August of this year. That would not have been ideal for a number of reasons, not least of which is the fire season we've had. So it's going to be in April of next year, which should be a much better time. I think that's the big stuff. Yeah. So
Okay.
moving along the process.
Any questions on that from anybody? No? Okay, Minersville Boat Ramp. What's happening?
So for Minersville, I just sat down with our engineering folks, and they have not been able to work on this since our last meeting on putting together that statement of work. With the fire season that we have had, they have spent 100% of their time on emergencies related to, you know, putting in bridges. We've had a series of mud flows that require a lot of road work. So we've reestablished that we want to move this forward once we can do that. And it's looking like we should be able to have a draft statement of work in January for the design part of the project. So this is basically a phased project, and there's the design and then the construction. And in order to move forward on this at all, I'm trying to get us to a place where we can move forward on the design. So that's kind of the first goal, because if we get an understanding of what that basic design is, then we can start NEPA and we can start that environmental review. And then the more detailed design work can occur along with the NEPA and kind of march forward towards construction. But we've been really set back by this fire season, and I'll just be real about that. That's been the situation. We're trying to at least get that design kicked off, because that opens up a lot of other doors for us to move forward on the permitting side. So that's the first goal. And we do need to work with DBOW on that contracting piece. So what they need to do is, once we have that draft statement of work, they need to review that and make sure that we're including all of the contract provisions that they require from their grant. So we'll be working with them the whole way through.
So thoughts, questions, comments, folks?
Well, I just have a question. So is this being paid for by the grant, or how are you paying for, you know, the staff to work on the design and then the statement of work and then all that stuff?
We're paying for that. The Forest Service is paying.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's definitely investment, you know, of that side of things, hoping to get to a point where we can make use of this grant. I would say the other big thing with Minersville is that there's back and forth about what that ultimate construction cost is going to be. And so if the design is indicating that it's going to cost more than the amount of grant dollars that we have, that becomes another issue and another conversation that we need to resolve with DBOW before we can move forward. So that's another reason why it's critical for us to have this initial design, and why in part getting started has been a challenge. Because if we invest money in a design and the design costs out too high, then DBOW is not even willing to pay for that design work. So we have to have enough money in the Forest Service Bank to basically cover this initial design work. And that's been a holdup too. But I ultimately said, you know, hey, if we can set aside a small amount here of Forest Service dollars to serve as a backstop, if DBOW wants all their money back, we can give it to them and we'll cover the small amount of design work with this Forest Service pot. And that was quite the conversation, but I think we're unstuck on that front now. And we are going to commit the Forest Service to a small amount for design, just so we can move forward on this thing. Because construction costs are going up. That's the other reality we're contending with.
Yeah, okay.
And I do acknowledge that the whole cost and who pays for what thing is really complicated, and it was hard for me to understand for a long time. So if any of you guys have questions about that or want clarification, I can explain further.
So time frame wise, if you have a statement of work in January, then you're requesting people to do the design. When do you think you would actually have the design done? So that you could start NEPA. Am I saying that right?
So roughly roughly next summer. And we would be starting not based on the full design, but based on something like a 30% design. And that is, and I'm going to say that's an optimistic timeframe that I'm giving you. It's based on a lot of things lining up. You know, DBOW completing the review timely, me continuing to have an archaeologist on staff, which is clearly challenging for the Shasta Trinity right now. But that's our goal, is that if engineering can get through this emergency season and refocus on program of work, Minersville is up at the top of their priority list.
Is there a way to keep them on the top of the priority list? Because I could just see more fires next summer and more distractions.
So we don't, you know, when there are bridges that are damaged and there are mud flows going into communities, I get that we want to keep Minersville going, but those emergencies are what our engineering staff are going to work on because they directly affect public safety.
And when does the grant expire?
I believe we are in the process of getting extensions through right now. DBOW just requested that we send in letters requesting extensions, and we are in the process of that. So that is not done, but they are getting extended, and I would need to find the date that they're getting extended to.
Because I mean, I can just see it's going to be years now. So, you know, yeah, it'd be good to know what kind of extension of time you're requesting on the grant.
So I believe they can only be extended a year at a time. And so that's why it's always this piecemeal year by year thing. Yes, okay, I found the briefing paper. Until we finish the project, the grant agreements with DBOW need to be modified each year to extend the completion date specified in the agreement, Article 7. So let me see.
So far, there's not been resistance on the part of DBOW to do extensions, correct? I mean, they've been willing.
No
Yeah.
resistance.
So I'm just kind of curious. I was thinking of Ross's, the Memorial Trail. I was trying to figure out who will we name this out of this group, this Memorial boat ramp after Kelly or Paul or somebody, Pete Finney. Okay, any other questions?
I can speak to the trail if you'd like. We've-
Sure, I left it off because I got tired of writing the same thing down every month.
Yeah.
So
What-
we've made contact with Caltrans and their kind of trails, like walkability planner. And we're gonna try and set up a meeting with them to kind of go over this trail concept and hopefully set up a time in the field for the new year with Caltrans and y'all to look at the ground. We've also made some progress on that. And I wish I had my map in front of me, but I don't. But the sort of shorter segment of trail that goes right up to Highway 3 that is currently existing but unauthorized and making that authorized. So we are making progress on that smaller stretch of trail and then starting conversations with Caltrans on the part that goes onto Highway 3. So there is movement. There is intended to be movement.
Okay,
Great. I had one question.
go ahead, Susan.
Did the culvert get in? I haven't been out there to check.
No.
No,
No, it didn't. Okay, thank you.
okay. So maybe this would be a time kind of for things that I didn't quite get on the agenda that we've had questions about. The Bowerman barn roofing project.
So that one, the contract has been awarded and the notice to proceed is going to be issued in April of 2022.
So I'm sorry, could you just say that again? So the contract's been issued,
Awarded.
awarded, okay.
Yes,
And a notice to proceed for April of 22.
yes.
Okay.
So just a couple questions then. So, would it be worthwhile to try to, I don't know when the next RAC applications are going to be submitted, but to try to combine it with the RAC application to actually do the whole job? Because right now what we're proposing is taking the roofing panels off, putting plywood on, and then putting the roofing panels back on. So, you know, Great American Outdoor Act would pay for the plywood basically. But then when we finally want to permanently fix the roof, we have to take all that back off, straighten the barn, and then put it all back on. So I'm just trying to figure out, is there a Great American Outdoor Act funding that could be applied for, or RAC funding or something, just so we can avoid taking the roof off twice?
Our contracting timelines are so long that I don't think there are efficiencies to be captured in the April 2022 work. Like basically what you're describing, you know, trying to get some other aspect of this funded and done. I think that's a separate project on a separate contracting timeline. And as much as I would like to do this efficiently, I don't think there's enough time to get that in, because these are the same, just for clarity, the Great American Outdoors Act funding and contracts are going through the exact same engineering team that is working on Minersville. It's the same people that put together those statement of work documents. So while I think I don't know exactly where we are in our Great American Outdoors Act cycle. Like, I know they plan for those several years out, and it's possible that Sally submitted something for future years and I'm not aware of it. But certainly it would be good for us to regroup on the work at Bowerman in terms of what's in this contract that's going to happen in April. You know, I know you guys put in some stuff for the RAC, for Trinity RAC for this current funding cycle, but then what's left? Like what pots of money do we want to go after that? And I think that could happen once Pete is back on the district, and we could set up that meeting with him as a sidebar to just go over everything, because he's really my key to understanding and working on this.
Yeah, one thing to keep in mind, if I understand correctly from Sally, is that the region has the option to choose multi-year projects to be submitted under the Great American Outdoors Act, and the HERS Lookout was submitted as a multi-year project, but Bowerman wasn't. So according to GOA, you know, it's not something that, you know, you'd be submitting funds for periodically. So Sally and I, at one of the previous Recreation Committee meetings, had talked about maybe submitting to the region a multi-year project that would focus on things that are in the National Register of Historic Places, like Bowerman, combined Bowerman and HERS, so that, you know, they would move up in priority for Great American Outdoors Act. So if you could just keep that in the back of your head, that when you get these calls for GOA funding, if you can try to enroll Bowerman into the multi-year program, because otherwise you are gonna get stuck with this piecemeal by piecemeal, you know, and at some point it's gonna fall down. So it would be nice to be efficient. I get it. It would be nice to be efficient, but you know, that doesn't always work. Okay,
I think
thanks.
that's great. I'm glad to hear that there is that multi-year, you know, aspect that's baked in to some extent in this. And certainly when we
It's
get
not-
a future,
Yeah, it's not baked in now into Bowerman, but it, you know, the region needs, you guys need to maybe consider applying to the region for Bowerman as a multi-year project. That's what I was saying.
yeah, I get that. I didn't even know that was an option. So knowing that that's an option, that's definitely something we should pursue with Bowerman.
Yeah. Thanks.
Okay. So next thing I had on the agenda was just an update on Title II RAC proposals. I put this together before the deadline for RAC proposals, so I didn't know what we'd have from recreation generally. So right now, you know, as far as I know, and Carol and Ross can correct because they're both on the RAC, we have a proposal for some minor kind of signage and some additional graveling of trail work at Bowerman Barn. We have Weaverville Basin Trail proposal from the RCD for, I think it's mostly maintenance work, but maybe there's some new trail or dealing with user-built trails in the Weaverville Basin Trail System. And we have proposal from the Watershed Research and Training Center for a variety of trail projects, including the Ewing Reservoir Trail construction work over in Hayfork, which I think is a mix of BLM and Forest Service land. And they've got, I think, some Weaverville Basin Trail road construction, some new downhill. I think Ross could talk to. And I'm trying to think what other recreation. Those are the ones that jumped out at me as recreation projects. Ascend Wilderness, they do trail maintenance work as part of some of their backcountry trail trips that they do into the Alps primarily. So that would be the other one.
Pine Cove.
Oh, Pine Cove Marina, for a quarter of a mile of trail maintenance between Pine Cove Marina up towards, I think, Ackerman Campground. There's a trail, there's a west side Trinity Lake trail there that is not been maintained in a long time.
Backcountry forest.
And Backcountry Horsemen, and theirs is to fund, to help pay for their fuel costs to get the backcountry horses and mules and crews from down in Reading or wherever they mostly live up into the Alps to supply crews in the backcountry.
So, I mean, I think the initial RAC review, most of the trails projects, people were
Positive.
So,
I think so some of them were multi-year proposals versus single-year proposals in the RAC. We have another meeting on Monday. One of the things we have $1.8 million in ask, and we have $1.25 million to allocate. So we've got to find $550,000 to balance our budget sheet. So it's possible that some multi-year proposals might get asked. Can you live with 1 year and reapply when the next round comes up after the new year? But recreation projects, yeah, they fared pretty well so far in the review.
although Sarah, so I did submit the proposal to do the road maintenance to Alpine View and Norman Boat Ranch. And that one, they just have a lot of questions, like how come the fire department's proposing that as opposed to Forest Service or
SPM.
SPI. So anyway, just that one did get a lot of questions.
I wonder if that
Be your,
that clearing of the road to the to Alpine campground, can that possibly be done with volunteers? I'm sure if I haven't seen the job myself, but I'm sure if you hired maybe one follower with a chainsaw and some bunch of.
And it's mostly ceanothus. It's mostly brush. And it's the kind of job that really only can be done by a piece of equipment.
Okay.
But Sarah, you were going to say something?
yeah, I was just gonna follow up on that road item and the road proposal. So I think some of this is a little bit of who's who in the zoo between me and Tara Jones. With her as the new ranger and us both being new to learning RAC. So I did see the questions that you had followed up with an email to both of us. I'm hoping to talk with her on Monday about those questions because I just don't know the answers to them. So we're hoping to get you something back on that, but it's just a little bit of a let's see, us not having the information and being new, I think.
Well, that's been my explanation to the RAC so far, is not that you're new, but it's just, okay, it's in the NRA, but Tim Ritchie and the fuels people from TRMU were reviewing the request, and it's a cost shared road, so SPI theoretically has responsibility, but it goes to all these Forest Service facilities, so SPI is going, well, it doesn't go to anything we really care about. And so it is one of those, yeah. So that's why I threw the, fire department in the, application, just so we could get a discussion going and just try to figure out, okay, what makes the most sense? How could we not run over Ross on his bike as he's driving down the middle of the road there? So yeah, we don't want to do that.
And it's a really, in the scheme of the RAC budget, it is budget dust. I mean, it's like a $5,000 proposal. But it clearly, we did a polling, of our RAC members, 2 plus signs, 1 plus sign, question mark or minus, and it came up just as a question mark. People had more questions than they had willingness to say, yeah, we'd like to fund it. And so next Monday is when we're going to get back together and try to resolve that and winnow down our $1.8 million of proposals down to 1.25 million. So whatever you can do, Sarah, to have that conversation with Tara. And
Was she at the meeting?
Yeah.
she was at the meeting, but her role there is as the designated federal official. So it's so we were trying not to have interactions with the proponents, just asking our own questions. So everybody got questions sent out to them to respond by Monday.
Her question was that an NRA road?
Lovely. Okay.
Yeah.
And
No, it is. It's just like where does it fit in the scheme of things? Everybody's trying to sort that out.
And one of the comments, from a RAC member was, this isn't the only Forest Service road, even a cooperative, use road that goes to a recreational facility. So are we going to see, the Forest Service asking the RAC to pay for, doing the same thing, going to Tannery or going to Hayward Flat? Is this kind of just opening up, that is the process instead of the Forest Service and the private landowner doing what their cooperative agreement says they're supposed to do, which is maintain the roads.
The RAC's paid for road maintenance in the past.
Yeah, but the RAC does a lot of road maintenance as one of the things they fund.
Fair.
But anyway,
That's helpful context.
Ross.
And it is in the trail around the lake would go right through there to
But-
Alpine Campground. And so.
That's what I said. We don't want to run over Ross.
Traffic by bicycle riders, hikers, whatnot.
Yeah. Okay. And that's all I had on RAC stuff, but we are hoping as a RAC that we see more recreation proposals in the coming rounds,
Yeah.
because the RAC has always been very generous with funding recreation.
Can I make
So
a statement real quick, just a clarification on ours? Just
Yeah.
real quick. Ours is actually primarily for doing significant upgrades to two of the new system trails on the Weaver Basin Trail system, which are the Junkins Ditch and the extension of the Howe Ditch. And as well as there is some maintenance that we're requesting because we oftentimes get calls to do things out, and I have some specific ideas about where there needs to be some maintenance done, like cutting back brush on Mackenzie Gulch Trail, for example. But that's a smaller portion of the ask. And then another larger piece is to try and get the maps updated, the mapping
Right.
updated to include all
Yeah.
those, to get the online system brought up to speed, like a story map with some of the historic and prehistoric site and informational points within the Weaver Basin Trail system, as well as some things like Ross had recommended where like durable maps printed on like handkerchiefs and stuff, things that people can actually fold up, put in their pocket and use for years. That's kind of, so those are some of the major differences, but the bulk of that money is probably going to, I met with Mike McFadden with the Forest Service and had a walk about on the Junkins and Howe Ditch trails, and there's a lot of need because those are beautiful trails. They really need to be brought up to this system standards, and so that's where a lot of that funding would be going.
Okay, great. Thanks for the clarification, Kelly.
Mhm.
Great American Outdoor Act. I didn't know what updates we needed. We've heard about Bowerman Barn. We don't have Sally to know about, because I thought there was supposed to be some trail reroutes this summer up in the Alps that probably didn't happen because of the fire and that sort of thing. But I don't know if anybody has any updates. No.
I don't have any of those updates. I did tie in with her before this meeting and ask if she had anything, you know, for me to share from the NRA point of view, but I didn't get those wilderness updates.
Okay.
I'm sorry,
And
Ross,
you go
Ross
ahead,
had
Kelly.
a question.
Oh, Ross.
Yeah, I think when you talk about the Weaver Basin trails, you have to realize that there's more than 50 miles of trail in that small area. And all these jobs were actually in different places on that trail. And the 10 miles are the part they're going to add is way up high. It's a lot of trails.
Yeah.
It's a lot of trails. And the fact that some of them were made by motorcyclists when they have a tendency to go straight up a mountain and straight down. And that doesn't make for a sustainable trail. And so a lot of them need to be fixed in places and on the whole, they're in good shape, but I mean, they need to be fine tuned. You know,
Right. Okay. So that's all I have on the agenda. Is there anything else anybody want to bring up that I forgot? Go ahead, Sarah.
So one project that you may have heard me talk about for a while now is Trinity Camps. And so this is a forest health project focused on the campgrounds around Trinity Lake. And so that project, we've been doing a lot of basically prep work, like pre-public scoping preparation on that. So the stand exams were completed this spring to really look at the current forest condition. We have archaeology surveys that were funded by an agreement, and those were also worked on. So we have a good foundation from which to move forward to public scoping. And we are hoping to get some of this pre-planning work moving forward into public scoping early next spring. So this is really, you know, in light of what we're seeing around Lake Shasta, which is widespread tree mortality, which due to insect and disease and drought, which is periodically closing campgrounds due to public safety issues. We want to try and get ahead of that on Trinity Lake because we're seeing the beginnings of that kind of tree mortality, and we want to maintain a safe recreation opportunity for the public. So really that is the genesis of this project, and we want to loop you guys in and be communicating about it early and often. So it's moving forward, and expect to hear more on Trinity Camps. We're going to come up with a fancier name for it before it goes out for scoping, but we just call it Trinity Camps right now.
So Sarah, is it all the campgrounds around the lake, or just the boat-in campgrounds, or?
The focus, I don't have the list of campgrounds that's so far included in front of me, and that's actually something we're going to be going over this afternoon in a meeting. Is kind of a what's in, what's out. Some of the work we've been doing is the TRMU is actually moving forward with the Bowerman Ridge Fuel Break project, which is 70% on the Trinity NRA. So we've been talking with them about, okay, what's going to be covered in Bowerman Ridge versus what are we going to have in Trinity Camps, and trying to make that real clear in terms of our scope. But yeah, I don't have, it's going to be more than our boating campgrounds though. It's going to be a broad array.
So we just got a map from the Watershed Center on the Bowerman Ridge project areas. Have you gotten that?
It's probably the one that we were looking at in our meeting earlier this week.
That has the prescribed burn adjacent to the barn. Yeah, I'm like, okay, be careful. So a question on the Trinity Camps though, is there a possibility of looking at the trees on the north end of Trinity Center Airport that are on Forest Service land?
Let me take some notes.
So I think Kelly will correct me if I'm wrong. They're on the south end of the ballpark or at the north end of the airport, kind of in between that Forest Service stretch in between the airport and KOA.
Yeah, those are they're trees in the creek. And then there's trees at the end of the airport's safety zone. And those trees are growing up. If you're a pilot and you come in, those are really scary now. So anything we can do to get those down, if we can build in removing those for KOA, and it also helps the airport, that would be great too. Because last time we had them cut, the only way we got them cut was our congressman at the time threatened the Forest Service that they were going to be liable for any plane that hit the trees because they wouldn't cut them. So I don't want us to go down that path again.
Ross, you have a question?
It's not very many trees. It's just a few trees. So it just seems like it would kind of fit in there if you're out there looking at stuff.
Ross.
Yeah, Sarah, my question is for Sarah. Does all that area out there before the conifers came was oak woodland? Oak woodland is better, is more fire safe. Is there any discussion about returning any of those areas to oak woodland? The conifers are leaving now. Are we going to replant conifers, or what's up with that? Is there any talk about oak woodland at all?
So we've definitely talked about oak woodland on the Shasta version of this project. We're earlier on the Trinity Camp's version of this project. So I think we have plenty of space to talk about oak woodland. And that's certainly something I can ask about as we move through this. The issue that you're mainly seeing is just the tree density is too high. A lot of bugs are getting in, trees are dying. It's a public safety hazard, and it's a forest health issue. I hear what you're saying about oaks.
Yeah, and just retaining, there are actually, there are a lot of oaks in the understory of a lot of what we have up here. And so it's just making sure that the project retains oaks and protects them, as you're doing the hazard tree removal.
And I think we would want to do that to the best of our ability.
Yeah.
What's pretty scary on the Shasta side is we're actually starting to see oak mortality and insects attacking oaks coming in because the drought is so bad and the tree density is so bad. So we're actually seeing oak mortality start too, which is something we hadn't seen before with those previous heavy drought years.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, but yeah, it's just the tree density that's the problem. Oaks,
Absolutely.
Oaks are more resistant to the lack of water, And there's a Forest Service has a facility in Magalia, I think, that grows oak trees or oak seedlings or something. Is that still in operation?
I think it's in Placer, but maybe it's Magalia.
There
I
are
heard about
a couple
Magalia.
of them.
Yeah.
So, okay. So anything else? Anybody have anything else for the good of the order?
Or any other locations you guys want me to key in on for this tree mortality discussion?
So are you trying to limit this to campgrounds or just stuff so the other place I was thinking on the airport is there is the space along where the tie downs are that's empty and there's nothing there. There's a fence there. I'd say half of the trees that are in that zone are dead. And I've been waiting for the day that one of those trees comes in and just wipes out the fence line that's around the airport that's required by the FAA. I think it's under a use permit that hasn't been renewed. I think it's kind of that whole area is in limbo, but there are a lot of dead trees in that one little area. And I believe it is Forest Service property.
Thank you.
As an aside, Kelly, I know you have always had a vision of a campsite at the at the airport itself, and that was what got kind of wrapped around the axle of the county's special use permit had not been updated and needs to be renewed before you can
Right.
apply to do.
Yeah, so
the
that
with the-
permit is, this area I was talking about is exactly where
Yeah.
I've always thought it'd be great to have a fly-in campground. And so having those trees removed would help, but we need to get the county and the Forest Service to get that permit done.
So either try to take advantage of the absence of a county transportation director, or wait until there's a new one and make sure they know it's a priority. But
That's true.
Where did he go?
Rick retired.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah,
So
That's
sometimes the void can be filled. So anyway, if anybody, anything else, Kelly Sheen, you have anything else for the group?
Who filled the void?
No,
Nobody.
but David, the interim
Cole-
director is David Colbeck.
Okay.
The interim deputy director.
Okay. I don't have anything to add. right
Okay.
now. Oh, well, I guess
Well,
I would say one thing. We cleared, and this is kind of somewhat unrelated, or somewhat related to recreation, but the trail along the Moonlee ditch and the ditch itself has been cleared from the water treatment plant above Trinco subdivision down to basically where the intake for the Young Family Ranch is.
Oh, cool.
And there've been a lot of people in that area that have been walking on it and giving us some good feedback about, we went up and cleared it for the sake of putting water in it so that we can get water down to Cemetery and the Young Family Ranch and some of the other users and stuff this next summer. But we're also doing an equip project there to pipe the ditch to sort of control the amount of water that's utilized just to the Moonlee Ditch Association users. So anyways, I was up there a couple of weeks ago after it got cleared, pulling muck out of the ditch line and stuff. And it was when all the colors were popping and stuff. And it's a really cool little trail. So I was excited to see water in the ditch when we were kind of giving it a test run. So
Cool.
pretty neat spot.
So the public can hike that trail?
It's technically considered, well, it's considered an easement, and nobody, Ed Presley, who lives right at the treatment plant, basically, and Andy Moody get a little bit curious about people that might park on that side, but you can. There's a couple of places to park on the lower end off of Oddfellows Road, and people can go up and walk it. Yeah, I mean it's considered a public use trail by at least the Moonlee Ditch Association. So, yeah.
And that's both sides of Highway 3?
We only worked on the south side, the side that's more in town. The other piece has got severe blowouts and stuff along it, but it'd be something that I would like to take up in the future to sort of bring that one up to. We're probably going to attempt to get it dewatered on the upper portion, but we would like to see that utilized as a trail. Although it doesn't kind of go anywhere, like it just sort of goes in dead ends, basically at the flume that drops below the highway. So, but the upper portion of it's really, really, really pretty. So,
scenic area.
mhm.
Yeah. Cool. Okay, Kelly Gant, anythings? No. Ross, Susan?
No, we
No.
like trails that aren't going anywhere. I've been working along the trail around the lake that isn't going anywhere. 78 years old next week.
Good retort. Chris Losi, you have anything else to add?
Sorry, I stepped away. No, nothing
That's
else.
okay. Okay.
See you next
And
Friday.
we have, and Sarah, you have
Actually-
anything else?
My final
No.
thing about Trinity Camp, so I'm good to go.
Okay, cool.
Pat.
Denise, the RCD mapper, anything?
Nope, I don't have anything else.
Okay. Well, with that, then I'd say it's a wrap. We're done until we have a full collaborative meeting next week, next Friday, 10 till 12, 12:30, something like that. So
Chris, I have one
I sent an
comment.
email to rangers and 4 supervisors for agenda items. So please give me your agenda items or you're stuck with whatever I put on the agenda. Okay,
Just had a
everybody
comment.
enjoy the rest of your Friday. Kelly Gant, go get your booster.
I am. See ya.
Okay, see you all. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
Kelly Sheen, I just wanted to get Pat's contact info.
Oh,
Well, if
okay.
you're on, I was hoping to talk to you, Pat, before next Friday. In light of the emails you've sent, which I appreciate.
Sure.
but- Yeah, is there a good,
Yeah, Monday's probably not a good day because I'm focused on the RAC meeting. Tuesday afternoon is pretty much open. Wednesday morning is,
Tuesday works.
yeah, so how
Free anytime between 1 and 4.
about 2:00?
That's good.
And you can call me. Do you have my phone number?
I do not.
Okay.
Sorry about
So,
that, Chris. I sort of,
Okay.
I saw that message a while back and it kind of got lost, slipped between the
it's
cracks.
530-739-3160.
All right, I'll put it on my calendar and give you a call. We're working on a preliminary map this afternoon, and I want to just talk to you about what would be most useful to get your input.
Okay.
Because in the past, it seems like you were waiting for us to have it fully fleshed out. So this time around, I'm working more to get it fully fleshed out, but now it sounds like maybe you don't. So
Yeah.
yeah,
No,
we
I
should talk
understand.
about that. What do I need to get? What does the collaborative want to see from us? Because we want to do
Yeah.
pre-scoping, left side analysis.
Gotcha. Okay, that'd be great.
Okay, 739-3160.
739-3160.
Got it.
Okay,
to you then.
cool. Have a good Friday afternoon.
Yeah, you too.
Thanks, Kelly.
Bye, Pat. Bye, Chris.
Bye.